Hello everyone, this is Lair with Counting Pixels, and today Dave and Darby and I are going to tell you about our 3 picks for NES Lost Pixels. In this category of Lost Pixels, we're going to be telling you about some games that were underappreciated at the time of their release, or maybe just flew under the radar a little bit. In addition to that, these are games that maybe aren't necessarily highly sought after by collectors today. So they're games that aren't going to be impossible to get your hands on, but they're not everywhere. These aren't the $5 games that you see just stacks of in the bins or whatever. So if you're just starting out collecting retro games, or maybe you've been at it for a while and you're looking for something that's kind of outside of your normal selection, these are some great games to consider. We're going to start it off with Dave's pick right now.
Thanks, Lair. Hey guys, it's Dave from Counting Pixels, here showing you one of my favorite Lost Pixels from the NES era. The Lost Pixel that I'm going to be talking about today is actually what I consider to be one of the best celebrity-endorsed games on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And of course, that game is Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu. Let's find out why this game deserves a second look. Released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in December of 1990, Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu was developed by Now Production and produced by Hudson Soft. The story in this game is definitely nothing special. In fact, there are no words in this game until the very end credits, so you definitely won't be kung-fused. See what I did there? But essentially, your sister, who I admittedly thought was his girlfriend until I read the manual, gets kidnapped and it's your job to save her. So definitely not going to win any awards, but it gets the job done. On your quest to save your sister, you will have to battle your way through 5 different levels. The levels are all somewhat varied, and you will find yourself taking down baddies in the grasslands, above the clouds, floating down a river, in a desolate plain, and even in a giant castle. Each level has its own unique boss fight, including giant statues, a flying frog, and a cloud ogre, among others. You will also have the opportunity to play several mini-games to earn extra lives and helpful power-ups. So now let's take a look at why I consider Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu a Lost Pixel. The first thing that you will probably notice when you boot up the game for the first time is just how large and detailed Jackie's sprite is. Jackie's character is beautifully animated, and you can see his face changing as he performs many of his different Kung Fu moves. The developers really put a lot of time and effort into giving Jackie's character a lot of personality and charm. And speaking of moves, Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu does an awesome job of making you feel like you're a total Kung Fu master. Jackie has several normal moves at his disposal, like punches and kicks, but you can also pick up special moves along the way. These specials include a somersault kick, a roundhouse kick, and a flying kick of justice. Also at your disposal, you have a limited number of Hadouken punches that completely annihilate your enemies standing in your way. While all of this sounds great so far, my absolute favorite part about this game is the control. There have been so many games on the NES that I have wanted to love, but I just couldn't because the controls were so sluggish and unresponsive. This is not the case with Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu. Everything feels super precise, crisp, and natural. Jumping isn't too floaty, and the hitboxes are generally pretty accurate. Within 30 seconds of playing this game, you will have already mastered the controls. Jackie is such a joy to control, and it's very refreshing to play a platformer that controls this well outside of Mario. Honestly, I enjoyed the precision and accuracy of this game so much that I was honestly tempted to go back and try to speedrun it. While the game is buckets of fun, it is far from perfect. Backgrounds can be somewhat bland and generic at times, and you will be seeing a lot of the same weenie enemies time and time again. It's also on the short side, only taking about an hour to complete on your first playthrough. The music here is decent, but it's not something you would probably remember after you are done playing it. But by far the biggest drawback is the price and availability. Unfortunately, Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu never came to any virtual consoles or the like, and a loose copy of the game is going to run you $60 and up. So is the game really worth the hefty price tag? Well, it's really hard to say. If you really enjoy solid action platformers and love owning some hidden gems in your collection, then I would say absolutely. And it's also a great piece of Jackie Chan memorabilia, you know, if you're a big fan of his. There you have it, guys. Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu is my pick for the NES Lost Pixel. Definitely keep an eye out for this one if you're out shopping around. But for now, let's throw it over to Darby to see what his pick is.
Awesome, Dave. I'm also a fan of that game. You really can't go wrong with Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu. Hey everyone, it's Darby from Counting Pixels, and my choice for this episode's Lost Pixels is Maniac Mansion for the NES. This game is awesome. Maniac Mansion is a graphic adventure game, better known as a point-and-click adventure by most people. The game was released on the NES in 1990, but actually released before that on PC in 1987. It was developed and published by Lucas Games and written by Ron Gilbert. Ron's been involved in lots of awesome games. He's been in Deathspank, The Cave, Tales of Monkey Island. He also has the upcoming Thimbleweed Park, which looks awesome. If you're not familiar with Maniac Mansion, it's a little bit like Deja Vu, Shadowgate, and Uninvited on the NES. The only difference here is in Maniac Mansion, you play in third person, and you actually get to play as 3 people. Let's go ahead and check out some gameplay, and I'll tell you about the game. Alright, so right off the bat, the first thing you'll notice about Maniac Mansion is it has an awesome soundtrack. Every song in this game is just really cool. This opening theme is actually one of my favorite songs from any NES game ever. It's just great. This opening scene really helps set the story as this meteor crashes into the ground right by this giant mansion. This is where the game will take place. I love the way the title scrolls across the screen like that, and I love that as a horror theme / sci-fi game. Beginning of this game, you need to select 3 kids. You're forced to pick Dave, Sandy's boyfriend, organizer of her rescue. We also have Razor, leader of the band Razor and the Scumettes, Bernard, Geek Award winner and Physics Club president, Sid, aspiring musician who hopes to start his own band. We also have Wendy, waiting for her big first break as a novelist. We have Jeff, who lives on the beach, answers to Surfer Dude, and my favorite, Michael, ace photographer for the college newspaper. Each character gets their own little tune as well, so it's really cool when you're playing as this character, they have their own theme song. Once you have your 3 characters selected, you'll start up the game. There's lots of cutscenes in this game, like this opening scene with Dave explaining what they need to do. The whole object of the game is to rescue his girlfriend Sandy, who's been kidnapped by someone in this mansion. In order to do this, you'll need to pull the rug in the front of the house, find a key, and then you can sneak into the mansion. Switching the kids is super easy, and actually required to beat some of the puzzles and challenges throughout the game. Exploring the mansion is very fun. All the environments are really cool and well detailed. It has a really unique art style. And though it is very fun to search the mansion, you also want to be careful as there are certain enemies and characters that will try to slow you down, such as Nurse Edna, who will capture you and throw you in the dungeon. We have Weird Ed, who is the son of Nurse Edna. We also have Tentacles, who will try to slow you down on your mission as well. We also have Dr. Ned, the main villain of the game, who has your girlfriend. Throughout the game, there's lots of cutscenes that really add to the cinematic feel of the game. And through these cutscenes, you'll find out a lot more information behind the scenes about the story and the characters. It really helps put you more into the game. It's very intriguing. Depending on who you pick, it can really change the outcome of the game. The items you use and the places you explore could all be different every playthrough. This leads to multiple endings in this game. There's tons of endings. For instance, in this ending here, you actually put the meteor in the trunk of a car. Use a key in this jet engine, and next thing you know, the car starts blasting off to outer space, sending the meteor home. The meteor is actually the cause of all this drama, as it's taken over Dr. Ned's brain and forced him to be crazy. If you're a fan of horror films or horror games, you like exploring, you like figuring out puzzles, or you're just looking for a really unique experience on the NES, I highly recommend Maniac Mansion. Thanks for checking out my Lost Pixels. Now let's head back to Lair so he can wrap things up.
Thanks so much for sharing your picks for NES Lost Pixels. I really enjoyed watching Dave's coverage of the Jackie Chan game because I had never even heard of that. I had no idea that existed, and it looks really cool. Maniac Mansion, I actually did get a chance to play before this video because Darby sent me my very own copy last week, and this is an awesome game. I definitely second the recommendation for that. My Lost Pixels pick is called Conquest of the Crystal Palace. It's an action platforming game that was released in 1990, and it's very similar to the Ninja Gaiden series. Conquest of the Crystal Palace was developed largely in part to 2 very influential members of the team, Yasumi Matsuno, who was the overall game designer and planner, and Masaharu Iwata, who was the music designer for the game. These 2 gentlemen went on to join a company called Square, which eventually became Square Enix, and they were very influential in the creation of games like Tactics Ogre, Final Fantasy Tactics, and Final Fantasy XII. I honestly think that this is one of the best games on the NES. So the fact that so few people know anything about it almost feels wrong to me. And today we're going to fix that. Let's talk about Conquest of the Crystal Palace on the NES. Our journey begins with the game's protagonist, a young man named Farron, being taken by surprise when his dog Zap suddenly dons armor and begins speaking to him. Zap explains that he is a keeper of the Crystal Palace, a magical home to crystals with the ability to bestow their owners amazing power. He goes on to explain that the now teenaged Farron is actually Prince Farron, and the rightful heir to the royal throne. An evil being named Xeris has usurped the throne, and Zap was only barely able to whisk away the baby Prince Farron before he was killed. Zap is now convinced that the time has come for Farron to rise up and defeat the evil King Xeris. Farron and Zap set off through the First Realm in search of the evil king, determined to stop him at any cost. The story is pretty slim throughout the rest of the game, however you are delivered bits and pieces through Kim when you enter her shop. Kim's shop also boasts one of the catchiest theme songs I've ever heard in a video game. Just listen to this. Kim offers a ton of items that you can purchase in order to make the game a little bit easier and power up Zap and Farron equally. Once you've had some time to look around Kim's shop, she'll offer to let you hear a news broadcast from the fake QNN news network, which is basically just her sitting at a table and telling you some things. These are really corny, but they're also really charming, and they offer a lot of insight into the game's backstory. Remember when I said that this game would remind you of Ninja Gaiden? It really does. You'll start to see here as the difficulty ramps up that there are a lot of obstacles to dodge, and every enemy that hits you will knock you back. With the steadily rising difficulty in Conquest of the Crystal Palace, you may be concerned that the difficulty is going to shoot through the ceiling by the end of the game, but thanks to Kim's shop, a power-up that can turn the tide of battle is usually just a few steps away. Great level design lends to the accessibility of this game by allowing you ample chances to power yourself and Zap up. That said, this is still a really tough game, and one that gets even tougher after you finish it. More on that to come. Several boss fights, like this one, involve a boss and his guardian, usually a mirror to Farron and Zap. These are challenging, and the game trusts the player to learn how to utilize some of the more advanced mechanics of combat. For instance, Zap can be summoned and dismissed at the press of a button, changing the way battles are fought in a significant way. It's up to the player to determine when Zap is a help and when he is a hindrance, and there are definitely times where he's a hindrance. I felt that most of the bosses, like this one, were easy to read, and after a few attempts, I was pretty confident that I could take them out. Conquest of the Crystal Palace is also a host to one of my favorite level designs I've ever seen from the NES. The background in this hellish landscape pulsates and retches under Farron's feet, and it all lends itself to the idea that Farron and Zap are very much unwelcome treading through here. Strange Lovecraftian enemy design and haunting music accompany the trip through this level, which is very much a standout in the game to me. This level in particular unfolds to become an adventure in and of itself, and I'll admit that I only bought Conquest of the Crystal Palace after I saw a clip of this very level being played. This level also boasts a surprisingly effective survival-style boss fight, wherein you're trapped in a room with tons of enemies spawning around you. Eventually a small purple orb spawns, and killing this orb ends the fight. The next sequence is very intense. I thought at first that it was a set piece, and it kind of was, just a very interactive and very dangerous one. Even in an area like this, obviously meant to send you spiraling into despair, the game is incredibly encouraging and satisfying, in great part to every single enemy dropping items for Farron to pick up. The final moments of the game are heroic, and feel like a worthy conclusion to what is ultimately a fairly short adventure, but a final surprise twist enhances the game and expands the content offered substantially. After defeating the true final boss, I was rewarded with an end screen letting me know I finished the game, and then immediately I was plopped back down in front of Zap to relive the opening sequence. This time I could pick another crystal to give me an alternative power on my adventure, and I quickly discovered that all enemies in the game had become literally twice as strong. It seems that only in defeating Xeris a total of 3 times would I truly rescue the mysterious Crystal Princess. Thank you so much for watching our very first Lost Pixels video for the NES. We really loved making this list, and we really loved talking about these games that we felt were totally underappreciated. But we know that you probably have a ton of other games on your mind that deserve to be in a list like this. Because of that, we would love for you to comment below and let us know which games you believe are lost pixels. Maybe you'll even see them in a future video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.